This podcast is sponsored by Ngrok. Ngrok is the premier delivery platform for apps, APIs, and IoT devices for millions of users today. It provides the ability for developers to easily deploy their code by collapsing the complexity of the CDN, WAF, API gateway, and global network load balancing into a single SaaS service, while allowing CISOs and network operations teams to standardize their networking controls, auditing, and observability configuration for all network ingress in one place. If you are building a product that needs access to data, systems, APIs, or devices stuck behind a network firewall, check out ngrok.com today. And now, on to our show.
Can I get the icon in cornflower blue?
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining episode 31 of Can I Get That Software in Blue? I'm one of your hosts, Chad Tyndall. Along with me is my co-host, ever present. He sells software so well, he'll make you believe. Steve Mazak, everybody.
Thanks, Chad. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you're at.
All right. Steve, how's it going out in Phoenix right now?
It's hot, dude. I'm reminded of that scene in Good Morning Vietnam where Robin Williams describes how hot it is in Vietnam. I feel like that.
Is it like a whole week where it's like over 110 or something like that?
Yeah, they're setting records every day. Like last night I went outside at about 10 o'clock at night and it was 105 and it felt nice.
Oh my God. How hot is your pool? Is your pool like a hot tub at this
yesterday
point?
it got up to 93. It's like swimming in soup. It's not nice. Not nice. Yeah.
Swimming in soup.
We're hoping a thin, smooth soup rather than a chunky chowder.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. It's the New England clam chowder. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's not great. But this is our winter, right? So I guess everyone's used to it. I'm getting used to it, but it still sucks.
Man, that's brutal.
Going from AC to AC.
At least in February, it's nice in Phoenix. You got that to look forward to.
Well, yeah, there's like 8 months out of the year where it's amazing to live here. So if you can get through the 4 months, you get to enjoy the 8 months. But yeah, yesterday I'm driving my car, and when you're in that kind of heat, even though you have your AC on, you can feel the heat radiating in from the outside on your car. It's a really weird feeling. And as soon as you turn the AC off, it just starts to heat up, and you can just like feel it. I swear, if there was a frog in your car, you could watch it boil.
Don't you have one of those fancy Audis with triple pane glass and all kinds of funky stuff?
Doesn't matter. The sun doesn't care.
I mean, 8 months out of the year is pretty good. We get like 2 months out of the year in New York that are amazing, right? We get October, and then it's either April, May, or June. We don't know which one in advance, but one of those is going to be amazing every year. And Mark, you're in London or outside of London now, I guess.
Indeed, yes. So, firstly, thank you for being proud stereotype. The British guys here. Let's talk about the weather. So I like that. But as someone that, like you, Steve, is proud owner of a car with double glazing of the Audi variety, yeah, it doesn't get that hot here, so it's not really a problem. But it does keep the cold out.
You don't have a British car, Mark?
I do have a Land Rover as well. Yes.
Oh, okay. Got
Yes.
to
yes.
represent.
Don't worry, it's all right.
The Union Jack in the back.
A7.
Oh, nice.
Completely useless now we've moved into the countryside and all the roads are far too thin and full of potholes. So the Land Rover gets a bit more appropriate.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's do a proper intro. Our guest today is the Director of Presales and Buyer Enablement at Consensus. Consensus makes software for solution architects and sellers to help automate and improve the software demo process. I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little bit today. He also co-hosts his own show, by which I was awed, called Two Presales in a Pod. If you listen to it, you'll glean that his insights are keen. Mark Green, welcome to the show.
What an introduction. Chad, what an honor. Thank you so much. Anyone that alliterates as well as Mr. Tyndall there, I very much appreciate. So, yes, two pre-sales in a pod and also burning pre-sales, which is, there's so many podcasts now that seem more relevant to our industry. I love it. It's great. But none quite as, I really appreciate a great name. And so, can I get that software in blue? Yes. Thank you.
I was going to turn the background green in honor of your last name today, but it was just too off-brand. You know, it has to be cornflower blue, right? It has to be cornflower blue.
It's a good blue. Texas. It's a little sort of Texas blue. I like that.
Every once in a while, we get someone who catches the reference from Fight Club, and they're like, "Is that a Fight Club reference?" Yes, it is. Cornflower blue. So, Mark, welcome to the show today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background and what Consensus does.
So my background, it's interesting. So I started off in IT. So I followed the blue flashing lights of servers and all the rest of it, all the way through first line support, second line support. But the further I got into tech, the further I was going to end up just sitting in a server room, not seeing the light of day and nor humans for months. So the thing that I really enjoyed about all of that was the people and the interaction. And that led me naturally to end up talking technology, not just to users, but to people outside the company as well. And that was pre-sales. Pre-sales then caught my imagination, technology pre-sales specifically. So I was talking about all kinds of things that you can't see, high availability, backup to DR. This is not software that you can show people, but you have to use your language, your face. I did that for many years. And then ended up, very thankfully, growing my career to the place where I am now. And I'm very fortunate to run a part of Consensus that looks after all our buyers. Now, of course, we've got lots of different departments in just like any company. We've got a marketing department, a sales department, client success. But buyers, when they move through those, aren't necessarily aware which one they're being helped out by. And certainly the project that they're running is not just to buy the software. As someone that's bought enterprise software, if I had gone to my boss and said, "Hi, I'd like to buy some software," and they say, "Sure, what will be the success measure?" "Oh, the success measure will be that I've bought it." Well, you don't get budget for that. You get budget for doing some things with it. And so the wider project is what our buyers have to achieve. And so I try to oil the wheels as they smoothly glide through those departments onwards to their success. And so buyer enablement is what I do through the people that we have here at Consensus, working with all of course, we talk about the buyer, the big stakeholder group, but that's another rabbit hole that we could dive into, but won't just yet. But that's what I do. And I'm very fortunate to work with some wonderful people and thoroughly enjoy it.
So, you guys make software that enables people to automate the demo process, if I'm understanding that right?
Yes, yes. So you've got pre-sales people, and they're wonderful, and they do demos. And we all know that a demo is not just showing the software, it's showing, well, just like in my journey, I didn't have any software to show. I had capability that needed to communicate the value of. So a demo is talking to people, talking about value, talking about the people who would deliver that value, that success that has been in other places, and showing this what the software looks like and how it works. So if you have people that would record that, they can record maybe some FAQ videos and have a bank of them, so the salespeople can fire them off whenever they're asked that red herring question, or the overview demo. That I know it's easy, and pre-sales people love doing an overview demo because you don't need to prep. You've done it before. You can be getting a coffee 1 minute before you go live. Unfortunately, is that being efficient with your time and the money that the company's spending on you? Probably not. So automating those overview demos, getting that out in front of the customer early. So when you have that live conversation, all the stakeholders in the room will have clicked on different things. They'll have tailored their demo experience to them. Some of them will have seen about the user interface. Some of them will have looked into the ROI and case studies. Some of them will have done all sorts of other things. So that live meeting suddenly becomes about actions rather than what is this? Bringing that capability when I was at Sage, I brought Consensus in, and the pre-sales teams there suddenly became a strategic player rather than just sales support. And I see far too often where pre-sales are seen as sales support, and I passionately believe that we are a lot more than that. And I'm sure you both would as well.
100%. I got to ask though, I mean, not that this is a Consensus commercial, but I'm just kind of questioning. I mean, this is the space we all play in. So I think we're all interested in what this tool does. Why would someone need it can't we just record a screencast and put it on YouTube and send that to the customer?
That's the first step. If you're not doing anything, so you can start doing that, because at least then you're being helpful. But then you get to the point you ask yourself, have they watched it? And then you start to realize that what you're actually doing is not helping you send the video to people. You're doing is helping the person that you're talking to at that customer. They've got a PR job to do, right? They need to go and talk to lots of other departments that they've never talked to, that now there's suddenly all these stakeholders involved. Giving them the tool to share amongst with other people means that you can record it and send it to them, but there's no way of knowing who watched what. And this stakeholder management is part of the reason that it works so well among, above, of course, one person having a specialism and lots of other people being able to send that out then. So you're scaling your capability.
The tool is less about recording the demo and it's more about helping your champion, your customer, share that and become an effective salesperson internally on their side.
Yes, champion sort of buyer enablement. I mean, cards on the table, the consensus order is not very complicated. It's not a big thing, but the analytics and the stakeholder mapping, that's what you're giving to the person at the customer, so the prospective customer. So you're really helping them drive the sale because they're the only people that can make the sale happen. As much as the salesperson wants to think that they're the influential person, they can't sign the sales order. Only the champion and only the buyers can.
How do you know who at the customer's side has watched it? Do they have to register to see it or something like that?
So they have to put their name in. Okay. And so in a world where many things are tracked in many different ways, and that is starting to be questioned by, I mean, look at GDPR for Europe. We've got CCPA in California. We've got ones coming in Utah, all sorts of privacy regulations. Just using what you've tracked with cookies and stuff like that is harder. What's great is that if you open it up and make it overtly the whole point that you're sharing it with real people and you send it to one person, the champion. They already know the people that they want to get in touch with. They can put their names in. They can send that and share that internally with the company with no problem at all. And then all of the different people will click on different things, they'll tailor their demo to their needs and watch it whenever they want, when they're walking the dog, in between meetings, and just pulling it back, because it does sound a little bit like an advert here, because I get far too excited about it, right? Because I love
This is our space, so it might be a tool we want to use. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're more than welcome. What I find is that the space has grown, which is wonderful. So back in 2020, Consensus invented the demo automation platform market. So it was recognized as a market by Aragon Research. There's suddenly a new space. And of course, people start to fill it. And there's lots of different tools and solutions that help in that space. And we started off with overview demos, like I was saying earlier. How, when people come in the top of the funnel, do you educate them? And educate them is not about what the software does at that stage. Then they're trying to figure out of the 20 things that they'd love to do, they have to pick 10 that is actually possible to do. And then they decide they're only going to do 5. Pre-sales job and what this early stage is to do is to try to help them build those use cases back up so that they can get more benefit without feeling like you're adding more and more use cases is going to be a really complex project. So once they've done that, then they're into the comparison phase, working out whether or not which vendor can provide those capabilities. Which is why it's always easier to win an RFP battle if you've helped them write the RFP. So I know that buyers like to get information from marketing websites, from YouTube. They'll always research you first. So if you're not putting authentic experiences recorded by the people that they're going to end up meeting in their hands earlier on, then you're missing a trick. And usually the only way to do that is to use a pre-sales person. But they're very expensive people, very valuable people that could be doing lots of different things, not necessarily churning through higher up the funnel, trying to attach to way more deals than they've got diary space for. So if they record a little demo, the salespeople then can use that authentic recorded message with their years of experience in the industry. And they've recorded a message that is as simple as, it's not Hollywood, it's not as simple as, oh, you'd like to see how that works? Sure. Let me share my screen and I'll show you. Well, isn't that nice? And you're being helpful in a way that can scale up the funnel. And so then the people that then watch all of that will qualify themselves further through the funnel on their own then. And so you're not having to pay to try to move them through the funnel, they're moving themselves through.
Now, let me offer an objection, and you could tell me how you would handle this objection if I was thinking about buying the software. So one of the things that we would do during a demo is not just a live version of a recorded demo that's the same every time, but we would use that opportunity to do discovery, right? To ask questions, to sort of customize the flow through the demo based on what we hear and get some G2 or what have you behind the scenes. So if someone's just watching a recorded demo, I'm not able to interact with them and do discovery. How does that factor into return on investment I'm going to get from this? Like, is it Am I basically am I getting a higher ROI because people are qualifying themselves out than I would get by doing the discovery myself during that time?
So, one thing that we discovered when we started doing this was there were 6 demo types. And what you've described is an absolutely fundamental and essential demo that should still always happen. So, this is the rub. People come along and they go, but we use that demo to do discovery. And really, because we need to know what about the customer in order to provide them a demonstration of the things that really matter to them. And they think that maybe by automating some of this, they're going to lose that. But I completely agree with them. That should still exist. What I'm saying is that is at the part of their buying journey when they have formulated an understanding of what it is that they're trying to get done, in the most part. I mean, you can help them, but earlier on, what would you think if when they came to that meeting, they'd already covered some of the basics? So they didn't spend the time saying, and this is not the main champion, they know all the stuff. They've been working with you. I'm talking to 3 or 4 other people that have joined the meeting. You're not quite sure why they're in the meeting. They've joined. They weren't introduced at the start. Are they finance? Are they procurement? What is this? Wouldn't it be nice if before the meeting you'd prep them all by saying, hey, looking forward to meeting you all on Tuesday. Here's something you might find quite interesting. And then the people that click through to there, they'll be able to go and learn a bit about your company if they want, if that's important to them. They might go and learn about the number of different products that you've got available because you have set up a demo for one. They might be interested in a different one or a different aspect of it. So you're giving them the opportunity to do that pre-reading. And then when you have that absolutely vital discovery demo, you'll have already seen the interaction that they've been doing. And so when Jane enters the room, you can say, hey, Jane, thank you for clicking on the video that we sent across. I see you really focused on these topics. We see that's really important to you. Do you want to make sure we include that in today's meeting? Or can we send some things as a follow-on? Because I know we're trying to focus on this today, but it's clear that you've got an interest in the others. What do you think about that? Does that work for you? Has that probably raised some more questions?
Well, yeah. So, Mark, I'm curious. Like everything you're saying tracks with me. Like it makes sense, but part of me still feels like you can just send them a video. It doesn't have to be tracked because they're going to share it with the people they think are going to be interested anyway, no matter if it's tracked or not. The people that would watch that video will watch it whether it's tracked or not. The people that are interested enough to watch it and to get invited or come to the next meeting are probably going to do that anyway. Like, and then the other thing that I'm wondering about is like, even if you have all this tracking information, will all the reps use it to actually think and plan strategically, like you just said?
So that's a very good point. And or in what way do you think it is therefore similar to saying, well, why do the discovery? Why not just send them all the information about all of our products? Then they'll read the bits that they're interested in. Surely we've given them all of the stuff. Why do we have to understand the things that they actually want and work with them on it?
Well, yeah, so I agree with you. Like understanding what they clicked on and what they watched will give you that information as to what they're potentially give you that information. But like as a buyer myself, having been on the buyer side a few times, like when I'm doing my research for product information, sometimes just poke around randomly. Like I don't actually know what I'm looking at. I'm just watching random things to learn more and more. And so I wonder how, other than just having a conversation by asking the questions like, what was the most interesting part about what you saw, blah, blah, blah. How do you know if they're just poking around randomly or they're actually that interested in something?
Well, you don't. So this is what I find quite interesting. So there's 2 ways that you see, I guess, sentiment. You can see what they select. So when there's a number of features that they're able to select from in order to tailor the demo to their experience that day, because like you say, when you're going through a purchase, you're not trying to understand all of the software at once. At one point, you're diving into this area. You're not going to do anything with the integrations. You're going to leave that till Friday. Friday, you want to come and look at the integrations. So you deselect all the other ones. You just click on the integrations one. So you just watch that. The vendor then would see that you've selected on this the first time you've gone in, and then the second time you might have sent it off to other people that are looking at other aspects. So that's the first thing. So the preferences that they choose in this stakeholder map. And it's sorted in the way that we do it, at least, is in 3 stages. Is this topic most important, somewhat important, or not important? And if you select not important, it just doesn't show you the video. You can come back and watch it if you want. The other thing is a heat map. So you then get a heat map of all of the topics, and you'll see where people have been watching through and rewound and watched a bit again. And either that is because they didn't understand it, they had to watch it again, or maybe they loved it and they can't get enough of it and they watched it again. Either way, now you know. And so you can bring it up in the meeting afterwards. And we use it at Consensus ourselves. We drink our own medicine, and our sales teams use it very, very much. So that because they send these out before meetings, they then go in and have a look and see what's been going on as a sort of preliminary discovery. It's not going to be full discovery, but it is certainly useful to, I find it useful to see who's not clicked on it. Someone that apparently is well into this project. They're going to be the one that's going to sign it. Don't worry. I've got them on board. You send this really useful thing. It's got all of the information they need. Don't click on it. Then you go to your champion and say, I'm sorry. I'm going to come set some meetings for this project, and it's important. But no one else in your team is watching any of this stuff, because you can send them FAQ videos. You can send them a tracked thing about previous customer experiences and things like that. Whatever you want to record, really. And if they're not watching it, then your champion is for some reason holding all the cards to themselves. And we see that. We all know those people. And then, I find that quite useful too.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, that's very inexperienced buying behavior, in my opinion. Every time I've seen that, it's usually inexperience or ego.
Mm.
Either way.
The other thing is, so we had a QBR a while back. It was great. It was in Austin, another place which is quite frankly far too hot to be reasonable. So much so that my brother, who lives there, has now got a place in Colorado because they just need to escape to the mountains,
Yeah.
because it is that hot too much of the time.
You can't get good barbecue in places that are cold. That's the downside.
Well, he's got a big green egg there, which is not bad. But I've got my Traeger sitting out my window here in England, right? So big smoking ribs fan. We had our QBR, and we used this so that when everybody attended the quarterly business review, all of the leadership was already up to date with the reviews that everyone done, and all the meetings were then actions. So we put all of our QBR updates into a demo board, sent it to the leadership team, so everyone was up to date. So you can use it for customers and vendors, but we use it for everything. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention is there's a plugin. So just like you were saying, Chad, why not just send them a video? So for that, there's of course the wonderful thing with the scaled videos, where you can have evergreen content that's a bit more rough and ready. So it's got to be authentic, like stick on YouTube, not Hollywood, as I mentioned. But sometimes you just want to send someone a video, a screen recording. Our salespeople do it for quotes. So they do a walkthrough of the quote with the person. So they hit record, share their screen, and they go through it. Now, that's weird because that's not a demo. But it's still helping someone with a video-based communication. And then when they send that quote off with the video, they get to see when the person opens it and which bits they're looking at. I get far too passionate about it. I'm sorry. It's so exciting because we go around so many companies, big ones, small ones, all different shapes and sizes. They've all got pre-sale teams, and it's not suitable for everybody. I'd love to think it would be, right? But it would be a bit weird if I said every single company it's perfect for. It's perfect for if you've got a pre-sales team, but it's such an honor to go around just helping people with stuff like this. Because when I was going up through pre-sales, there was no tools. I mean, okay, there was PowerPoint.
Back when I started in pre-sales, I probably got into it. I know I got into it way later than you did, Mark. Back then, it was just recording videos and sending them before the meeting was like a best practice that we had developed. Then when you get to the meeting, it wasn't just doing the standard demo. It was like, you've already seen it. Let's talk about what you saw, and then move forward from there. So the idea resonates with me a lot. It's just sometimes I get a little, I guess, what's the right way to say it? Like, you have all these great tools like Gong and Chorus and other tools that are supposed to help us as sales teams sell and get insights. But more often than not, it turns out that people aren't using the insights, or the insights themselves over time turn out to not really matter that much. In Gong, for example, like, it tells you how patient you're being and what your talk time is. That's not really helpful. If they say I talked most of the meeting and it was a demo where I was presenting the whole meeting, that's not a bad thing.
So here's, I think, the difference between some of those tools. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that, Gong's great and they're going to take over the world, or they already are. But there's many tools to help salespeople sell more efficiently. The sales enablement world has been, flooded with great tools for people to sell more accurately, go out and call people more accurately. You've got Sales Loft doing all these things as well.
And now there's a lot more AI tools coming out as well.
But how many of them can you put into the hands of the people trying to buy the software and make their project a success? How many are for them? Because what Consensus is, whilst it is useful for a salesperson to be able to send out and track it, So many companies that I speak to go, oh, but our salespeople want to choose which videos the person watches. And it's because they've still got the mentality of they know best. They do know a lot about the software and they need to help the buyers because then they don't do this all the time. But only the buyers know their company, and it's their company, people in their company, there's other stakeholders that you're never going to get to meet. So it's software for them, really. You put it into their hands and they use it. That's an empty space. It's growing. It's a growing space, but it's a very exciting space.
Mark, I like that take on it because, actions matter more than words sometimes. Not every time, but people can say anything they want in a sales meeting, but what they actually click on and look at after the fact will tell you a lot just by that, I think.
Well, I know Chad is deeply interested in talking you, Steve, about actions, these trust state changes and the actions that are therefore involved. Chad, you were mentioning about trust earlier.
Well, actually, hold on. Moving away from the consensus stuff for a minute. One of the reasons I like it is because I've actually been trying to have my team do less demos because sort of when we're talking, then we're not listening. And I wanted to see, like, have you seen success in sort of doing less of that and just having more whiteboarding type style discussions, or saying, like, let's talk about your problem and we'll tell you how we can solve it, but without actually showing the product. Like, let's just, we can send you instructions later, but let's actually talk about what we would do, as opposed to us just kind of watching me click through things.
Well, that's the true value of solutions consultants, right? Or pre-sales people. They're consulting on a solution. So what we found at Sage was one of the biggest things is that we wanted pre-sales people to be able to get back to doing more proper consulting, helping companies actually grow and change and do and succeed, and all the stuff that the marketing says we help them with. We're very good at we can make the software sing. We can spin it in any direction you want. There was a guy called Harry, and I should probably at some point change this guy's name to protect the innocent. But he worked for a company. He was doing 6 demos a day of the same demo. And you're thinking, well, really? Yeah, no, at least. And it was because sales had the power. Sales said demo. And that's not fair. That is not how I want to lead. I don't want to lead a team of people that get called up by sales should not just click their fingers. And especially not go and do just overview demos. You're right. The buyers have been able to cover some of the basics. That provides much more time in the live meeting to cover the things that are more valuable: the whiteboarding, the collaborative, the consultative pre-sale.
I think we do better when we don't do a demo sometimes, and it's more of a conversation. Because, like, I just like this idea. Now we have this technology. It's easy to record 20 different versions of a demo or take different paths through the product and say, like, this is your path. You're going to use these features. Go watch this. Whether it's a YouTube video or something on Consensus or whatever. I just feel like we have better success when we do that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've been in both cultures where in one, I was fortunate to create the culture, which was sales engineers are not to just do whatever the sales reps say, like we're a team and we both decide what to do. And then I've been in the other culture where that's not really welcomed as much, right? It's more like do what I say because I'm the sales rep and I have all the power. And when I win, it's all because of me, right?
Every sales rep is different, right?
Yeah, but the ones that are newer, they take their cues from the older ones. And so, as sales has such high turnover anyway, where I find the issues is like newer sales reps that have only been doing it for a little bit, they get influenced by the overall culture set by the leader that trickles down. And so if you don't nip it in the bud fast, then good luck.
You're right. You are right. I've seen it work the other way where the salesperson, in fact, she became the sales leader. She used Consensus to open the bottom of the funnel and just let more leads flow through. Leads that, quite frankly, she didn't have the time to run them all. But what she did is opened the bottom of the funnel, but then put a filter. And that filter was, if you've watched through a demo, you're getting a phone call. And if you've not engaged with it at all, I wasn't going to talk to you anyway because you weren't, you didn't qualify through BANT or any other sort of methodology that, quite frankly, people can cheat their way through anyway. But if they actually engaged, they're worth talking to. So she opened it right up, did loads of deals, made a huge amount of money. People were watching her content whilst she was climbing to base camp Everest, and then she became the sales leader in that part of the organization. I mean, it's some of these people where you're just glad to know them because you just love that story.
Money never sleeps. In your world, it's like the demo never sleeps.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Demo whilst you sleep.
I love the idea that it's less of a sales funnel and more of a sales decanter.
Oh, careful, we'll start talking about wine and then we'll be off.
Yeah. Well, normally, sometimes we record at night and then we're drinking while we do that. And the shows get really crazy. Yeah, but we'll have you on for another one, I think. There's certainly a lot of topics to talk about here, but let's talk about
Yeah.
something which is near and dear to my heart, which is building trust with the customer. And, this is something that I think, well, it's pretty intuitive, but when I was at AWS, it's one of our core values. We talk about it a lot. Anytime we hire a new SA, we talk about how we build trust with the customer, how we maintain trust with the customer. And Amazon, a big part of that, outside of acting ethically, of course, which we always want to do, was just never saying something that was incorrect, right? If a customer asks a question, you can only answer it if you know 100% that your answer is correct. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of time spent on training SAs to be comfortable saying, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out and I'll get back to you. And so when a new SA comes on and they train and they have to go through like the mock presentation process, we just spend time hammering them on questions that we're pretty certain they don't know the answer to. And that's to make them comfortable saying, I'm not sure. Let me write that down. I'll get back to you. And it's always acceptable to say, I don't know. I'll get back to you. And it's never acceptable to give an answer which you think is true, but is actually wrong. And then you got to go back and say, no, I made a mistake. It wasn't, now you've damaged your credibility and essentially you've damaged your trust. I saw you talking on another show about trust and trust state changes and this concept. And I was hoping you could tell us about that because I find this idea really core to not just the sales process. Of course, it's important to the sales process, but this is a very small world. If someone doesn't trust you, that means when you change jobs and you go work at another vendor or you're on the other side, we deal with the same buyers all the time. And Steve and I have changed jobs 3 or 4 times and, we're selling to the same people at Goldman Sachs or we're selling to the same people at JP Morgan Chase or Barclays or RBS or any of those things. If you damage your credibility, then they're going to not trust you at the next job. So this is really important concept. And I'd just like to hear about this trust state changes idea that you talk about.
Thank you. Well, yes. And just to finish off, you said you need to teach people to say no. I don't know it. I often think that it's worth one admission that you don't know something builds more trust than a whole meeting worth of stuff that you say you do know, because they don't know whether or not you're just making it up. But if you say, no, I don't know that, I'm sorry, but I will find out for you instantly. We're not going to make that up. So that's instant trust. But trust state changes, yes. So this is something which I hit upon actually in Austin with one of my team called Ty. So shout out to Ty, who, by the way, used to run one of the most successful Apple stores. He used to run it in Seattle. Now, Ty and I were working on trust state changes, and this is built up from there are a number of actions that each stakeholder must achieve in order to give the sign-off. We're going to simplify things a little. We all know that there's at least 10 to 14 on average stakeholders in any big enterprise deal these days. However, we're just going to focus on the CFO. So imagine then that the CFO has to make sure or wants to make sure that creating waterfall reports in the new software is easy. Not can it be done, because you can find that on the website. We do waterfall reports. Brilliant. Okay, nice. But is it easy? This person's going to have to do this complex stuff. It's a pain to do in Excel. Is the new tool going to be able to help make that person's life a lot easier? Well, there's a number of ways that they can do that, but they are currently in a state where they don't trust that your solution is going to be able to help them do waterfall reports easily. Think of the needle as being pointed over to one side. Currently in the don't really trust it yet. What we're trying to get them to is the I do trust side, where yes, I believe it's going to work. I trust that this is going to do what we need. I'm going to be able to make these waterfall reports. Brilliant. And so the distance between I don't trust and I do trust will change for the person that you're dealing with, so the stakeholder, and the action that they're trying to achieve. If it's will I be able to create the full annual reports in a way that will meet our ESG requirements of our business and future businesses, cool, that's a big old difference. If it's waterfall reports, easy, then you don't have to move the needle very far. And what happens is someone, the CFO, says, the project manager that you're working with, waterfall reports are important for me. Can we make sure we cover that? Pre-sales person hears that. Oh my goodness, I'm amazing at waterfall reports. We'll spend 15 minutes of the hour doing waterfall reports. Now, of course, this is fine. Of course, hopefully the CFO actually turns up to the meeting. But if they don't, you've prepped a quarter of the time on waterfall reports for something that the person's not there. And really, it only needed a slight change. So what I'm saying with trust state changes is more than just we're doing a persona map of who needs what, but understanding out of the stakeholders that you've got, what is it? What are those little ticks, those actions that must happen And what method are you going to apply to achieve that trust state change? Because the ability to do waterfall reports easily, it could be on the website, it could be a little demo, it could be a little frequently asked questions demo that takes 2 minutes. It's been sent across. The person can watch it whilst they're walking the dog. Done. Now, that didn't cost you much. It cost you something like a month and a half ago when the person had to record their screen. But then everyone now can service that need whenever anyone is asking. That's very much a one-to-many. If you think about Steve, the rope score, John Care's rope score, the return on pre-sales effort, great rope score. Record a little video, gets used by everybody. So that's the little thing. That's one method. It could be that, it could be a document, it could be a YouTube video, it could be all kinds of different methods.
But you're talking about getting the customer to trust that your product will solve their problem, basically.
Yes, but we so often talk about buyers and think that they're one person, and we talk about problems and we lump them into the ones that we sort of think we know. Now, this is, of course, you were saying about discovery earlier. This is where discovery is very important. Sometimes you discover all of the things, but you need to know how much of a trust change you're trying to affect. If they already kind of think that it's good, and then you spend lots of time moving a needle that's pretty much over there anyway, you're spending your pre-sales time, this valuable consultative time, on not much. So find different methods to attach to that. And then so you plot all of the different trust state changes that need to happen in one of your classic deals. And then when you do your discovery, you add on some specifics about that customer. Work out which method is most likely to help that stakeholder achieve that trust state change, and then work out the price and to whom. So the more trust state changes you can get to flick across automatically, self-service or by the buyer, you're not paying for. You've created that journey for them to move through smoothly and learn. Tick, it's going along nicely. The ones that are like, oh, that's where you need to be. That's where the live meeting happens. And so all of these ones that need a heavy shift across, they are all in your live meeting. And that's when you are applying your very expensive people to very worthy, very expensive problems. There has been for so long a disconnect that I've seen. It's not easy to do this task. It's not just, hey, we're just going to implement this tomorrow. But it is worth thinking what methods you apply to which trust state change, whether it's a document, a demo, a website, a live meeting, whatever. And if you are involved in any of them, and of course the salesperson wants you to, because you know the best way of getting a meeting with the customer is to promise them a demo. And so they'll get on the call, and the salesperson, all they want to do is see whether or not they've got some more budget yet. And so that's trust changes, and I think it's very useful.
In terms of operationalizing this, I mean, is this something that you would look at as you document what your buyer's journey is? Do you ask at every step, what is the trust state change that needs to happen at this step? And then, or how do you actually operationalize this concept?
Yes. So we've got a good understanding of the buyer journey. Yeah, they go through understanding that there's a need to change, and then learn about who and what and who they're going to do it with. Then they have to buy it, and the risks associated with that, both personal and corporate. And then they have to deliver it and actually achieve those expectations. So we know that everyone's going on that journey. We know that all of this, it's not just one person going around that little loop. It's all of the different stakeholders, and they're all at different parts along the journey. So don't forget any. If you forget the CFO, they will not be happy when someone comes and asks them for budget and they've not yet got answers to the questions that they asked. So you know that they're all going to be going through there. And so in order to help them get through each part of that journey, when the CFO will be at the start, they're just learning what options they've got. Are we going to bother changing any software this year? What reasons do we have to do that? Just applying these trust state changes, smaller, less important ones. As you move through, it gets more detailed, right to the peak point. And of course, I say this as a classic, true die-in-the-mold pre-sales person. When they get to the peak point of pre-sales, the most important part of the buying journey, this is when they are asking the really hard questions of what is it that we're trying to do and who is it that's going to help us do it. So that's where you've got a bulk load of these actions. And I've plotted it all in a spreadsheet. You just put the buying journey down one side. You write down all of the actions that someone would have to take to buy some software or to achieve the project, because buy software is just one of those actions. And like I was saying, me and Ty in Austin, we did the experiment we put up Post-it notes on the wall because we were in a WeWork. Well, it's very WeWork style to put post-its on a glass partition, I thought. So we planned it. All of the actions needed to select a restaurant. We used the example of the previous night. Where are we going to do? What do we eat? Any allergies? Do we want to walk? Do we want to drive? Who's coming? What did we have last night? Do you want the same again? Right. There's all these decisions. Ty used to work at the Apple store or run the Apple store. He did buying a telephone. Buying a telephone. How old does that make me sound? Buying a phone. And of course, you've got the different stakeholders. It might be that it's a teenager getting the phone, the user, but the purchaser might be the parent. So the parent is worried about service plans, price, security, privacy. The teenager is thinking about, they need to know, does it have enough storage? Does it play the best games? Is it a cool color? So they've all got all the different trust state changes. Apple does a very good job of helping people just tick those off. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do that. And of course, of experience and new things. And so we did those, and then we did the consensus buying journey. Every action that someone has to do when they're putting in a demo automation project, and we put it into a spreadsheet.
How do you think about, well, I mean, a big part of trust, or sometimes people will just trust it implicitly because other people use it, right? Or this sort of social pressure. I'm sure teenagers want an iPhone because their friends have an iPhone. They don't want their text messages showing up like green bubbles. They want their text messages showing up like blue bubbles. So how important is that sort of in this process? Do you build in customer references to trust state changes, or like?
Yeah, so we did things like UX function, but one of them we did was UX vibes. How does it make you feel when you use it? So we really thought about all of the decisions, all of that someone would have to make, some of which we can't help with. Internal sign-off, we can advise them. They've got to go and do it. There's no method we can apply. We can't send a demo. We can't send a document. We can't do it in a live meeting to help them go and have that. We can't get that document signed. They have to go and do that. So there's some that you can't apply a method to, but you still write them in, and then you apply all of the methods. And then in the demo column, Ty and me, we run what we call the demo engine, which puts all of the official content into our internal demo library, and many other companies have got their own ways of doing it. We make sure that if a demo is the most efficient method for that buyer to learn the things that they need to do in order to tick across that trust state change, we'll record a demo for them, and we'll just let them watch it whenever they want to. And when they do, we'll know. And so, yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah, Mark, I was curious, like, how does the trust state change get recognized? Is it just part of the conversation? Like someone's making a decision that, hey, we've achieved like another level of trust here. Like, how does that work? How do you really know?
So we call them trust state changes, or because that's the name we came up with. That I think that fits the reality of what's actually happening. From a buyer's perspective, they don't really see them as trust states. They see them as project tasks, things they've got to check off, things they've thought about that they need to check. So we don't go to a prospect and say, these are the 400 things you need to do in order to make your project a success. We know that there's probably about 400 that they could do. That's probably about 100 that they should consider. Definitely, but they'll probably already be considering them. It's not our job to make them feel like there's a massive task ahead, but certainly what we can do is say, all of these ones, you're going to have to convince a lot of these other people of lots of different things. And you're not necessarily an expert in what they need, but we can give you some stuff that you can send on to them that'll be just what they need. So it's a mix. It is definitely, there's no one size fits all. It's definitely still off the back of a discovery. We kind of just do, I always believe you should always be discovering. Don't just set a discovery meeting and say, well, we did the discovery meeting. Oh, it's like you should always be qualifying. If someone got through the first few pages, doesn't mean they're definitely going to buy. So always be qualifying.
Mark, I thought it was the ABCs, man. Always be closing. I mean, this is what Glenn Ross taught me 20 years ago. ABCs, baby.
Mark, I totally agree with you. Like, discovery and qualification is a constant thing. It's not a one-time thing. I was going to ask you about, like, do you have training for folks on how to recognize when trust is being built, or maybe more importantly, when trust is lost, or you do something where you actually go backwards a little bit? And how do you recognize that?
No, we don't. But it's certainly part of the journey that we're on. This is one of the ways in which people can help buyers achieve what they need to do. So sometimes we have people that come to us and they already know what they need to do. They know what software they need to buy. They know how they're going to install it. They know how they're going to run the project. They know the measures of success. They know the people that are involved. Work with them on some complex thing about, okay, who are all of the stakeholders? What are all of the desires? Have we checked them all off? You have to be smart about it and not just assume that everyone needs to do that. So often you see sales where stakeholders have been forgotten. We will leave no one behind. But it fills our day. It fills the day with the most fascinating things, always seeing something from the buyer's perspective. Apart from a passion of mine, it is a founding concept of our company by Garin Hess. So he wrote a book. It is over there. If you're watching, if you're just listening, by the way, on Spotify, whatever, get over to the main app because you can see the video as well. He wrote a book, Selling is Hard, but Buying is Harder. And part of the concept of that is a methodology to coach the buyers and help them called Deep C. You have to discover, equip, engage, personalize, and then coach. And that's really focused on the buyer. And our whole company has been created with that in mind. So we're a little different to some companies because we got to do this from the start because we're a comparatively fresh company. Although looking at some of the people coming into the industry makes me feel like we've been around forever.
But you talking about coaching the buyer?
Very much so. I mean, the concept's been around for a long time.
Well, I've never thought about it in those terms. Like,
so you have to coach the buyer because they know a lot about what it is that they need to do, but they will find it tough. What you should really be doing is discovering all of the different stakeholders. Discovering the champion, equipping that champion with what they need in order to discover all of the other stakeholders, figure out what they need, engaging those other stakeholders through great tools like Consensus. Other tools are available. I happen to love Consensus. I shifted my entire career away from a successful job at Sage to go and run this part of Consensus. So, I must love it, or I'm mad, but I think I love it.
You're really talking about coaching the champion through their own internal procurement process in case they haven't gone through it before. Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, because that's tough. Well, we had the head of the UK at Sage, a guy called Paul Struthers at the time. We presented Consensus to him. This is when I was working in the medium business segment of Sage in the UK. And we presented it to him. He was like, this is great. Make this happen yesterday and put it across Sage Intacct as well. And we were like, project win. And we were all celebrating. We think it's going to get signed. This is great. Presales are going to be number one. And then I went and found the procurement person and they said, sure, yeah, we can start a 6-month analysis of this. And I'm like, hello, what is this? Now, that was my inexperience, but of course, that's replicated across loads of software purchases. That happens. So coaching the buyers through stuff like that, what are they going to need? Prepping them, really important thing. And so doing that, providing them tools like this seems to work really well.
So I remember a sales rep told me about this idea of like teaching the buyer how to buy. And the point they made, which always stuck with me, was that we sell software every day. They buy software once or twice a year. And so, it would be almost irresponsible of you to not help them learn how to get through that process, because that's also a skill, to your point, Mark, is like getting through procurement is really tough and it requires skill, especially if you want them to get through quickly, right? And they may not know if they're a first time buyer or, they've only bought a certain thing that is a certain budget. So they only had to go up a certain level for signing authority. This one could be different. And so testing those things early on in the conversation is something I've seen some sales reps do very well. It's really cool to watch. I've learned a lot from them.
So you said you've bought some corporate software before?
Yeah, just small stuff, nothing big.
And what was the personal risk? You don't have to say the specifics, but what was the personal risk if you bought it and it didn't work?
It was really low because it was like, project management software. Like I brought Atlassian, Jira, and Confluence into an organization years and years ago, back before it was probably as safe, but like I love that software, so it was safe to me. Buying development tools, the risk was people won't like them and they won't use them. But back when I did that, we had already been using it. So again, it was an easy decision.
Well, buying stuff from Atlassian, I mean, that's rarely going to backfire, isn't it? It's a great tool. I'm also a fan. Yeah. It confuses me a little because I don't spend enough time in it to get used to all of the different ways it works. But the people that do, and some of my colleagues, absolutely love it.
Anytime you have usage-based pricing, it lowers the risk too, because it's like, oh, well, we tried it for a couple months. We didn't like it. It didn't work. Like, it's not like we're out millions of dollars, right? We stop paying for it when we stop using it, and that does lower the risk.
I spent most of my life in selling finance software. So that you bring in a new finance tool and it's going to rip something out and it's going to put something in place that is going to have to sit there for at least one financial year, if not more.
Yeah, it's a big lift. It's a bigger lift. Yeah.
Mark, what do you think about the kind of buyer experience and the buyer expectations in the consumer world leaking into the enterprise software world? So, for example, we probably all buy stuff, apps, like the most bleeding edge piece of software I've ever purchased is ChatGPT subscription for $20 a month.
Yeah, Copilot.
Yeah, like these are things that, we've now been kind of trained to do, right? We're a subscription economy now. Even car manufacturers are trying it. So how do you think this is going to change over time? Like, do you think as demo automation, sales automation software continues to get better, buyers will get more value, I believe. And eventually, do we need enterprise sales reps and enterprise SEs? Or, will product led eventually get to the point where it just takes over and I'm not second guessing spending $20 million with a piece of software that I've never met a sales rep for?
It's interesting. So there's two things that I hear from what you're saying, and also love that question. Oh, so good. This is our jobs. This is what a great place to have a conversation. So there's two things. One is about the till, and the other thing, which I will come back to, in the advent of the checkout till, and this. But the second thing you mentioned was about, is this going to flag the end of things for SE and technical sales reps? Firstly, absolutely get it out of the way. Absolutely not. Remember when RFP automation tools came in? Ombud, RFPIO, Loopio. There's all sorts. Everyone's like, hold on a minute, why are we bringing in automation? That's where my skill, where my value, I feel that is. People didn't lose their jobs. Certainly, it's never been tougher to hire pre-sales people because they are in demand. And all RFP tools was got rid of some of the bulk of the boring stuff. We got on with more interesting things. Although I was on a podcast the other day with someone, we decided we both quite like RFPs, and we're not quite sure why. So perhaps there's a self-help group that we need to be in, but that's maybe for another day. But talking about the till, so I think, and of course, it's a date. So like statistics, in my mind, they get made up on the spot. But I think something like 1879, there was a guy on board ship. He looked at the way in which the revolutions of the propeller were being counted, and he realized that in his shop, where his staff, unfortunately, kept giving stuff away, he could create a method for when something got sold, a cog went round and there was another iteration, and it created the first checkout till. So the checkout till then basically existed all the way for another 200 years until Amazon decided that when someone is shopping, they're going around having a look at all of the beautiful things. And then they've collected all of these things, they've got them, and then they look towards the door and there's a big old barrier. And not only is there a barrier that you have to get through, but they also want to take money from you. And it's very painful. So they decided to just get rid of it. And they invented Amazon Go, just walk out technology. Now, I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm sure there's good and bad uses for all over the place. But they recognized that you could make a change to the experience the buyers had during that journey. And they were bold enough to say, hold on, why does everyone use a till? Is there a way that we can get rid of that painful part? And so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that demo automation will solve all the bits of the buying journey for all the buyers and all the problems that pre-sales will ever have. What I am saying is that I think that there are actually I know there are pre-sales leaders around the world that are deciding to be brave enough to say, we're going to serve the buyers so well, surprisingly helpfully well, that for certain parts of the journey, at least, pre-sale, but also we're seeing it post-sale going mad at the moment, with sending demos, but that's a whole other topic. Why not make that journey easier in these unexpected places? And free up all of my pre-sales team to go and do more consultative things. And so they invented the till, they got rid of the till. The till still exists, right? It's not like there's no tills anywhere evermore. But there are great things like car parks. If you've been into a big multi-story or a big car park or parking lot where it reads your number plate and just charges the amount of time you stay in there. I love that. I don't want to have to go up to a machine and put in money and work out how long am I going to be here, or come back and then have to find the ticket and then go and put it in the machine and then get charged money. Why can't it just recognize my car and charge my account so I don't notice? That's a buyer experience that's lovely, and it allows me to spend more time shopping. And so I don't know why we just don't do that with software, and we are.
There's very little that I hate more in the world than waiting in line to give someone my money, Like, I'm trying to give you money. Why am I waiting? Just take my money.
Yeah. Although if you've ever paid paid the government, somehow their systems are very quick at taking
Oh
that.
yeah, no, it comes out before you even get it, right? It's like
Yeah, Mark, I'm just curious what you just mentioned, like that the story you told about the till, it makes sense to me. But over time, like there's been lots of evidence that jobs do disappear, not just change over time, but slowly but surely disappear. So for example, here locally, they're trying to build a restaurant that's completely automated. And I know Taco Bell now has a restaurant that is mostly run by machines. And so maybe the right way to think about it is few can do more versus the job's going to be obsolete. And I think these sales automation tools that we're all excited about, and I haven't used Consensus, but I'm sure that I will. Eventually, it'll be just like revenue per employee goes up and things like that. And those are the metrics we should be looking at for now, maybe rather than eventually when will we be obsolete?
Well, yeah. So I'll leave you with this as a final thought then. I think many tools have come along to automate things. And you're right, there have been cases where automation has changed the shape of the requirement so drastically that there have been people now where their skill set doesn't match what's needed. I don't think we can solve that. I mean, we can solve that by just going and living in the forest, but I don't think that's a realistic solution for everybody. I think things will change. I think what's actually good, though, is that what we're looking at is we're not changing and automating the way in which pre-sales do everything. We're being the microwave. Sometimes it's easier to shove something in the microwave. You still need a microwave. You still need the people to make the videos, to make the demos. And what we do is we take this power of pre-sales and make it applicable to people all across the buying journey who want to send that great authentic content out. So what I'm seeing is pre-sales solidifying it at both a strategic level at the leadership meetings, because now they're providing content all over the place, but also from the personal level of pre-sales colleagues, they are suddenly finding that instead of only being able to attach to deals that they've got available in the diary, their impact is being made available to lots of different places as well, and lots of different times. So just because they're not available doesn't mean their buyer can't learn from them. And so I really think that's encouraging. I think that when we look at the way in which automation is changing various things, we've got two options. And it is either to be a weather vane sat at the top of the building, just being blown whichever way the wind is going. And if you do that, you always follow the easiest path, and that's fine, but that's not necessarily going to get to the good places. What I would say is to embrace some of this change, and we see companies across the world doing that, many of which are doing things we didn't even expect. The results they're getting are great, and we're just really happy for them. So instead of being a weather vane, be a compass. Set your direction, know why you're doing it, and if helping your buyers is one of the things that you want to do, there's ways to do it.
That makes sense. Mark, one last question for you, and then Chad, I'll let you take over. You mentioned something about like Consensus being used in post sales, like CSM potentially, and you got me thinking when you said that, my brain went to like DevRel and all these other teams and companies, modern software companies that could benefit from this. So can you talk a little bit about like what trends you're seeing in tip of the spear DevRel type stuff, people using Consensus or CSMs?
Yes, so we're seeing people use it across all sorts of different groups, because my job spans marketing, sales, and CS, and then onwards to a happy lifetime with us. People use it for a bunch of different things. So our CSMs probably send out as many demos as the sales folks, but it's a different type of thing. So for them, it's much more FAQ demos. So people will be doing integrations, and they'll want some help with that. And so they just run into the library, grab one, send it across. And there's a people, so that really helps. But also the Consensus Snap, the plugin, the Chrome plugin. Someone will message them either on support, like via the website, or from some of their meetings or whatever, and they'll have a very specific question about their company. And of course, the CSMs work with companies. They get to know all of the different groups and the shapes of the companies inside them. So let's say, oh, this division wants to do this. How do we set up the groups to do that? That's a very client success style question. You're not going to have a video necessarily set up for that. You just whack record in the top right-hand corner, show them how it works, and then send it off. So they use it for that. So I think it can be used across all of it. We just need to get our devs using it, but I don't think we can plug it into Jira just yet. Never say never.
Never say never. Mark, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that idea of using demos in the post sales and customer success process. Well, Mark, Steve and I love geeking out about sales process. We love geeking out about how to structure SA teams and what SA should be working on in order to maximize that revenue per employee and make things more effective for everybody. And thanks for joining us today to kind of geek out on those topics that are near and dear to our hearts. It's been great talking with you.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me on anytime.
All right. Well, let's give a quick plug for your podcast if you want. Again, say what they are and where people can listen to them.
Yeah, so 2 Pre-Sales in a Pod is on Spotify and whichever platform you like. Also, Burning Pre-Sales, which is the short form. So the 2 Pre-Sales in a Pod is pre-sales people getting chatty. We don't really have a plan. We hit record and it's good fun. Burning Pre-Sales, short snippets, burning questions answered. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I am Mark Green at Consensus. Or you can just type in mark.technology into your browser and magically I will appear.
That's awesome.
I love that you have that, Mark. I'm doing it right now.
That's awesome.
I was very early in on the TLD game.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And if you would like, please follow us on LinkedIn. It helps us know who our listeners are so we can engage with you. And if you have any questions, reach out to us there. Thanks. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mark.